Hello there, and thanks for watching the next video of Palo Alto video training series. In this video, we're going to talk about policies and rules and how we can basically create policies and allow or block specific requests on the firewall. There are a number of things that we will be talking about in terms of creating policies in different types and orders, and how we can use the security profiles, and what are the best practices in terms of creating policies. Just quickly review the design that we have. So we have a Windows 2012 server here, which will be used for authentication. We have a client on the same subnet as well, which is a Windows XP. We have our Palo Alto Firewalls with 3 interfaces and a PC, which will be used as our router. So we will have internet access through the PC, and on Palo Alto Firewall we could start creating policies and limit access to the internet for these resources that we have here. So let's get started. Just log into our firewall using a password. So before we start defining policies and creating policies, one thing that you need to make sure, if you do have licenses, you need to make sure that your URL filtering is up to date, so you could basically download the URL filtering. To be able to download the URL filtering signatures and database, you need to make sure that you have appropriate, you are using appropriate interface to do so. Because if you remember, by default, I said all of the traffic will be sent to the management interface. So we go to setup, services, and service route configuration. And as you can see that I have changed Palo Alto updates here to use 192.168.137.10, which is the interface which is located on outside interface. So we need the outside interface to be able to go out and download the updates from Palo Alto network. I've also set up NTP, the same thing, because to be able to use and update the downloads, your clock must be updated, and it's important basically to use the right clock and time configuration to download the updates. And as you can see, I've got the DNS server configuration, and I'm using the free NTP server to get the timing from. So a couple of things you need to make sure. Just update the service route configuration to make sure that you're using the right interface to download the updates, and make sure you download the latest updates from Palo Alto as well. So let's get started. So if you remember, we already created a basic policy to allow everything, so we can test basic functionality. So let's just make sure that we still have these access on our machine. So we just log in again. Try to browse internet. Sure enough, we do have access to the internet. Going back to our policies, you can see that we are allowing everything. We're using a URL filtering, default URL filtering profile. So one of the things that we're going to test and see is basically how the profiles work, and how we can basically test the profiles. So if we look at the role that we created and go to the Actions tab, you can see that there are different profiles we have. We're using the URL default URL filtering, and going to antivirus and choose the default antivirus and default protections and things like that. So just choose a couple of those. It's going to show you how this works. Click on OK. Change. So remember, these profiles and things like that will work only if you have a valid license and update the basically packages and stuff, databases from the website, otherwise it's not going to work. So we just give it a try. I'm just going to open a new browser, Google. So if we try to connect to websites that they are supposed to be blocked, you can see the website is blocked, categories adult. If we try to download a virus, for example, just to do a test, there is an ACAR test virus file. You could basically try, just click on that. Obviously it's good. The browser is going to come up with not itself, which is fine. Again, we go to test file. So we are going to do the test. There we go. So if you just try to download the file, it's going to come up and say that there is virus and it's going to block us. So that's how the profiles are working. Again, if you want to change different settings, for example, I want to let my Windows XP machine to have access and not my server. By default, all of the IP addresses, they do have access. So my Windows XP machine is 192.168.1.5 and my server is 1.2, as you can see on the diagram here. 192.168.1.5. So once we do this, so you can see that now I only have access from this to outside, and the next rule is this one, which is going to deny everything. So we just commit the change. And going back to our Windows machine to try, see if we got internet access. And we don't have internet access. The reason that we don't have internet access is probably because we're using 192.168.1.2 as DNS server, and it can be resolved because we don't have internet access on that server. So we're going to go back to here, just add another rule, just call it DNS source address, or source one is inside. IP address is 192.168.1.2. Oops. 168.1.2. Destination is going to be outside any, and service is going to be DNS. This is a service that I created before, but you can create a DNS service basically by is UDP port 53. Actions. Hello. Okay. So I'm gonna move this to the top as well. Commit the change. And once it's committed, logically we should have DNS access on our server, and the client is using DNS server of the server to get it. So just give it another try, and sure enough, you can see it's now working. And if we go back to our server, just copy. First browse. You can see that internet is not working on this machine. So we should have ability to resolve the names, and as you can see, because we created a role for DNS and permitted DNS access from this server, but the actual internet access is not working on this machine. So we are basically blocking our server from accessing internet. We are allowing our client to access internet on specific URLs, and we have our virus profiles and things like that. So if you want to go more than that, you could just say on the client, I only want to have access on HTTP and HTTPS. So that essentially means that FTP and other things like SMTP and others is not going to work on the client. So we're just going to, before I commit, I'm just going to do a quick test to the client, and probably just do a quick Google search, find out an FTP server. And you can see this is still HTTP, so I'm just going to try and see if FTP is enabled on this link. So you can see FTP is enabled. I'm not going to log into the FTP, but you can see FTP is enabled. We're just going to go back, commit the change that we've done. Once it's at live, we should have only HTTP and HTTPS access on this role, not FTP. So we're just going to give it another try. Let's try Google Web is working, and let's try out FTP again. And you can see FTP doesn't work anymore, which means it's being blocked on the firewall. So the other things that you could do with the policies, as I said, you can specify the zones, you can specify the IP addresses, you could even specify the user if you want to. So you could just find a user on Active Directory and just allow that user to access, or create some specific rules for that user if you want to. Destination again, destination address and zone. You could specify specific application, things like that, to basically be allowed or be blocked, whatever. You could just Bitbucket, for example, you could just block it if you want to. Services in your categories again, and all these profile configuration that you have here. You could do the logging you could, if you have a syslog profile, you could send the logs to a central syslog server and things like that. So you have a lot of flexibilities with the profiles and with the security profiles. To basically narrow down what is required. So the best practice as always is to just narrow down or minimum privileges to give your users and your computers and the network to have access to only what they need. So that implicit deny at the end is obviously important because it's denying everything. So that is called a negative security model. So you are denying everything and allowing only what you need, which is the right thing to do. And you always better to make sure that the rows with more heat, you put them on the top because it's gonna be less load for the firewall. So for example, there will be a lot of DNS requests and there will be a lot of HTTP requests. So you probably better to move them on the top rather than having them at the bottom of the list. If the list is too long, it's gonna have some impact on the firewall. And we also have positive security model, which you can do it the other way around, allow everything. So you have to override these and basically deny what you need. It's always recommended to use the negative security model. So it's better to just narrow down the privileges and access to only what is required and block everything else. I guess we've pretty much covered everything on the policy, so you could just play around with the policies, create rules, trying to provide access or limit access for specific users or specific IP addresses and understand how they work. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will be with you in the next video. Thanks.